Coming in at number 10, we have James Proudstar, aka the hero Warpath. A mutant that developed superhuman strength, Warpath idolized the X-Men as a young man when his older brother, Thunderbird, joined the team. However, Thunderbird tragically died on his very first mission, an incident that caused Warpath to begin to hate the X-Men and become obsessed with killing Professor Charles Xavier. Briefly joining with the villain group called the Hellions, Warpath would eventually see the error of his ways and return to the side of good, frequently fighting alongside the New Mutants to help save both humanity and all of mutant kind. Coming in at number 9, we have Natasha Romanoff, aka the Black Widow. That's right, while she might be best known now for being an agent of S.H.I.E.L.D. and being one of the most resourceful members on the Avengers team, the Black Widow still has an awful lot of red in her ledger. In her very first appearance, Black Widow was attempting to rob Iron Man's tech with the help of another villainous thief at the time, Hawkeye. While Hawkeye would see the error of his ways a bit quicker than Natasha, she would go on to be brainwashed by the infamous Red Room, training her to be a remorseless assassin, skills that she now uses today as a member of the Avengers to try and make up for her bloody past. Coming in at number 8, we have Bucky Barnes, aka the Winter Soldier. Originally believed to have perished during Captain America's World War II era adventures, Bucky was in fact captured and brainwashed by the villainous organization Hydra, turning him into the perfect weapon and such a deadly assassin that he would become infamous throughout the Marvel Universe, even rumored to be involved in the assassination of President John F. Kennedy. It was only through the dedication of his best friend Steve Rogers, aka Captain America, that Bucky was finally able to remember who he is and abandon his villainous career. While he's since started using his lethal training for the side of good, the Winter Soldier is still a brutal opponent, and with an arm made out of pure vibranium, surviving one of his punches is something that his enemies should definitely still be worried about. Coming in at number 7, we have the infamous Harley Quinn. Originally a psychiatrist at Arkham Asylum who took a particular fascination in the Joker, Harleen Quinzel was manipulated over time into breaking the Joker free and killing a guard, before the Joker pushed her into a similar vat of chemicals to the one that had created him in the first place. Reborn as the Joker's second in command, Harley believed she was in love for years as she helped the Joker with his schemes and war against Batman, but would eventually come to realize that the Joker was a violent man with no genuine feelings for her. Ever since, Harley has struggled to keep doing the right thing and has become more of an anti-hero than an outright villain, fighting back against the Clown Prince of Crime that took so much away from her. Coming in at number 6, we have Selina Kyle, aka the one and only Catwoman. Originally just a cat burglar in a slightly more elaborate costume, Catwoman terrorized Gotham City for a while as her heists grew more and more elaborate and continued to be foiled by that pesky Batman. Eventually, however, Selina would wind up prioritizing those she cares about more than her thieving ways or connections to other supervillains, and combined with her growing romance with Batman after years of merely being flirty rivals, it finally looks like Catwoman might be permanently fighting for the good guys from now on. Just, you know, don't blame her if anything too expensive goes missing. Coming in at number 5, we have Patrick O'Brien, aka Plastic Man. Typically seen as one of the comic relief members of the Justice League, Plastic Man's origins actually began with him being a common criminal, a safecracker for a band of burglars. Following a robbery gone wrong, Patrick was shot, covered in chemicals, and left for dead, unintentionally causing his transformation into Plastic Man. Capable of completely manipulating his body down to the molecular level, Plastic Man is essentially indestructible given how flexible he's able to become. Completely impervious to physical damage, Plastic Man has also shown a complete immunity to mind control or telepathic suggestions, as his brain isn't made of enough solid matter to control. All of these facts combined make Plastic Man a very redeemed superhero. Coming in at number 4, we're gonna have to go with the famous, or should should I say infamous, Deadpool. Originally designed to be a dark but slightly sarcastic villain for the X-Force comic series, Deadpool has over the years turned into a charming and fourth wall breaking anti-hero that's always trying to do some form of good, but sometimes shows it in some pretty odd and violent ways. However, the most notable aspect of Deadpool's powers and what makes him so powerful is his sheer inability to die. No matter how many times you stab him, shoot him, or chop some bits off, Deadpool will always bounce back with at least a couple of bad jokes. Add in his not insignificant skill with all manner of firearms and weaponry, and you've got an explosive anti-hero you do not want to mess with. Coming in at number 3, we have Pietro Maximoff, aka Quicksilver. A super speedster with a complicated backstory that's gone back and forth on both his parentage and whether his powers are mutant in origin, Quicksilver was one of the original members of Magneto's Brotherhood of Evil Mutants, before eventually being convinced of Magneto's villainy — I wonder if the phrase evil mutants had anything to do with that — and joined the Avengers instead, at the very same time as early member Hawkeye. With nearly all of his abilities focused on making his body and movement as aerodynamic as possible, Quicksilver's speed has been theorized to be limitless, even if his powers don't quite compare to all of the extra abilities of the DC Universe's Speed Force. Nevertheless, Quicksilver is incredibly fast for the Marvel Universe, and let's keep hoping that he continues to run for the good guys. Coming in at number 2, we have Wanda Maximoff, aka the Scarlet Witch. Originally believing herself to be the mutant daughter of Magneto, Wanda is in reality one of the most powerful magic wielders in the Marvel multiverse, and a conduit for chaos magic that allows her to rewrite reality to her will. And while she was one of the first members of Magneto's Brotherhood of Evil Mutants, given the whole thought he was her dad thing, she'd eventually become an essential member of the Avengers, even if she does occasionally have brief forays into more anti-hero-like activities, such as the whole M-Day scenario. But hey, nobody's perfect. And finally, coming in at our top spot, we've got Eddie Brock, aka the iconic Venom. From Spider-Man's edgier looking costume, to a bulky web-slinging supervillain, to the lethal protector of San Francisco, Venom has held more jobs over the years than anyone else. But with the recent defeat of the dark symbiote god known as Null, Venom has become the leader of the symbiotes entirely, and thus has one of the most unstoppable armies in the entire Marvel Universe at his beck and call, alongside the fourth dimension spanning ability to interact with any symbiote throughout both space and time. Let's hope that Venom keeps on leaning on the hero part of anti-hero, because otherwise, all of these additional power boosts that he's gone through recently could wind up being a huge problem for the rest of the Marvel Universe.
Number 10 on our list, the Red Hood from Batman the Brave and the Bold. In the episode Deep Cover for Batman, this version of the Joker exists on Earth 23 and sports, well, a red hood. Although his face is mostly obscured, we do catch a glimpse of a few features that can basically confirm that the Joker is under the hood. His trademark grin, pale skin, and a bit of green hair show that this Joker is actually supporting Batman in the fight against evil. After fighting off some bad guys, Red Hood Joker actually thanks Batman and hopes he can return the favor. Sure enough, in the very next episode, Game Over for Owlman, they team up and defeat Owlman, who had previously impersonated Batman and ruined his reputation. This instance with the Red Hood proves that if Batman and the Joker could find a common enemy, they might be able to keep fighting crime together and maybe even bring the Joker out of his insanity. But we all know that this isn't always the case with the Joker, just in this list. Okay, 9th on our list goes to John Doe Joker from Batman the Telltale series. In this storyline, Batman is actually committed to Arkham Asylum after being drugged and influenced to attack Oswald Cobblepot. There, he runs into a couple pretty bad prison inmates who you can bet were imprisoned by Batman himself. So who saves him from this encounter? A sympathetic, insecure version of Joker known as John Doe. What's cool about this Joker is that since he's appearing in a Telltale series, you get to control if this version of the Joker stays good or not. As we all know, most interpretations of the Joker show an outcast who feels slighted or abandoned in some way by society. society. So in this storyline, this Joker, although initially good, can go dark real fast if you choose to treat him poorly. If you choose to treat him like a friend and trust him throughout the game, he'll eventually help to take down the agency, putting his life on the line in the process. But if you choose to treat him like a tool to get what you need, he will pick up on it and start to adopt homicidal tendencies. Man, this dude is sensitive. 8th on our list is from a Batman Captain America crossover, where this version of the Joker teams up with Red Skull. I know, not very heroic yet, but just wait. In a page that has become something of a meme in comic book culture, the Joker is shown learning that Red Skull is actually, in fact, a Nazi. And when Red Skull tries to equate Nazism to Joker's own evil ways, the Joker actually says, "I may be a criminal lunatic, but I'm an American criminal lunatic." He then sprays Red Skull with some kind of green poof in an attempt to kill him. Later in the comic, the Joker actively seeks out to kill Red Skull, stating that he's actually planning on helping Batman put him in a cell for the rest of his life. So yeah, although this heroic version of Joker isn't necessarily an alternate version of the supervillain, he is an iteration of the Joker that draws a line in the sand on his own limits to what is too evil, even for the crazed clown prince himself. Okay, 7th on our list goes to the Joker's Wild Jokers. Yes, that's plural. For those of you who aren't already familiar with Tangent Comics' Joker's Wild, this storyline features a modern version of reporter Lori Lamaris, who fights crime with her 2 other Joker teammates, student Mary Marvel and entrepreneur Christy Xanadu. These 3 Jokers are up against a big foe in this storyline on Earth 9, facing off against an evil tyrant Superman. So yes, these versions of the Joker are actively seeking out evil and fighting against it. Although it doesn't turn out so well when the tyrant Superman ends up torturing and eventually killing Mary. Christie's whereabouts remain unknown and Laurie's in prison for 10 years. When she gets out, she decides not to take up the Joker costume again and instead continues under the identity of Manhunter. But for that brief period, the world was introduced to one of the most unique, heroic alternate versions of Joker on our list, and we're better off for it. At number 6, we go to Earth 3. First appearing in countdown number 32, Jackie, a struggling stand-up comedian, eventually assumes the title of the Jokester and becomes known as something of a hero to Gotham. Much like other versions of Joker, Jackie has been bullied his whole life and is getting sick of it. So when Jackie witnesses Owlman kill the owner of the Last Laugh comedy club, he decides enough is enough. With Harley Quinn as his manager, he changes his act to focus on ridiculing Owlman. By doing this, he becomes a kind of hero to Gotham, which had also become kind of tired of Owlman's tyranny. But only when Harley Quinn is killed and Jackie's mouth is sliced open in the classic Joker way, he assumes the identity of the Jokester. Jackie, aka the Jokester, although having lost all of his sanity, still dedicates his life to ridiculing and humiliating Owlman. Owlman is a pretty brutish vigilante assuming a role on Earth 3 as a supervillain, so the Jokester's efforts are absolutely known as being heroic. And that's why he belongs on our list. Okay, number 5. This is a weird one. In this storyline, a version of Joker is set out to kill an evil version of Batman, who was created by an evil Joker in a big battle, but that's not the Joker we're talking about. In this unorthodox story of good versus evil, this evil Batman, known as the Bruce, basically has this religious event called the Night of Blood, where he challenges anyone to try and kill him to take on the new role of Batman. And a guy named Joe Collins, who's the leader of a resistance against the Bruce, is brainwashed and becomes the new Joker. Stay with me. So this version of the Joker is heroic because he wants to take down the evil Batman. But what really brings home the heroic aspect to this version of Joker is when he finds Bruce Wayne's Batman costume and sets out, dressed as Batman, to defeat evil Batman. So it becomes Batman under the influence of an evil Joker facing off against a good Joker posing as Batman. I told you it was strange. Number 4, we've got the Joker from Superman Distant Fires. In this universe, a nuclear holocaust has killed off most of the population of Earth, killing many superheroes and supervillains, leaving any survivors without superpowers. One of the sole survivors is Clark Kent, who eventually finds a jungle refuge where a few others have survived, including Wonder Woman, a one-legged Flash, and Joker. What's interesting about this version of the Joker is that the nuclear holocaust was so devastating that it rendered him sane. That and the fact that he'd gone years without Bruce Wayne as his nemesis after Bruce was killed in the nuclear event. I guess in a universe without any good, the evil finds a way to balance itself out. Either way, I think this storyline gets the point across. A nuclear holocaust would be so bad that it would turn Joker good. So let's avoid that. At number 3, we have the Joker from Batman R.I.P. This Joker is not quite as cut and dry heroic as the others so far on this list, but he definitely deserves a spot on the list nonetheless. With the threat of criminal organization the Black Glove looming, the Joker and Batman have a private meeting where the Joker actually warns Batman of the Black Glove's intentions of killing Wayne. What makes this Joker heroic isn't that he's no longer a threat to Batman, but instead that he finds himself with a common enemy to Bruce Wayne. When a member of the Black Glove approaches the Joker to join them, he decides to kill them instead. And not only this, but he places a bet in that moment that Batman will actually rise up and destroy the criminal organization. Although after this, Joker is sort of back to his usual shenanigans as a side threat in this storyline. But for that time being, he was actually helping Batman. Alright, we're almost there. At number 2, we've got another one of these situations where Batman and Joker find themselves with a common enemy, the Batman Who Laughs. Sort of a self-explanatory name, really. This evil version of Batman, sort of a Batman-Joker hybrid, comes from the dark multiverse and appears in Dark Knight's Metal. When this evil Batman comes from another dimension, he brings with him the philosophy that Batman's approach is too soft and won't be enough to stop crime altogether. So what does he do? Yep, he gets carried away and kills people, which is something Batman can't stand for, of course. But with this Batman Who Laughs being so unpredictable and volatile, he's proving to be a worthy foe to Batman, who has to approach the Joker for help in taking him down. The Joker's help proves to be worthwhile because since his own actions are equally unpredictable and volatile, he's also able to successfully take down the Batman Who Laughs, solidifying heroic status, at least for that moment in time. Once again, I'm pretty sure the next day he woke up and chose violence against Gotham again, but that's just him, right? Unpredictable. Okay, finally number 1. The spot at the top of our list goes to the Joker from White Knight. Known as Jack Napier in this storyline, this version of the Joker belongs at the top of our list because he has fully gained sanity and reformed into a functioning part of society. What caused this is suggested to have been a controversial run-in with Batman, who beats the Joker up so badly that witnesses start to think Batman might have gone too far. On top of beating him up, he also force feeds him a full bottle of pills that the Joker had pulled out himself. Gotham becomes divided on whether or not Batman had acted out of character, and after Jack Napier recovers from his injuries, his intellect is at an all-time high, and it appears as though he's completely changed for the better, possibly because of the pills. Jack even goes as far as giving a heroic speech saying Gotham deserves more than the Joker, and makes moves to actually indict the Gotham police force for conspiring with Batman, someone Jack now sees as a threat to functioning society. Whether you think the Joker deserves redemption or not, this interpretation of the Joker is the biggest departure from the original villainous Joker that we normally see. His clean look, his reputable character, takes the character and ultimately does a great job of making us stop and think what it is that makes the original Joker what he is.
Kicking off the list at number 10, we have Blob. Fred Dukes, aka Blob, made his comic book debut back in Uncanny X-Men issue 3, and he got his powers when he was just a young man. He often looked at himself as this extra, super strong freak of nature at this point, just this giant, strong man whose temper often got the best of him. The X-Men met him at a carnival where he was using his might and muscle just to get by. And then when Scott Summers approached Blob and asked if he'd heard about the X-Men, he responds with, "Oh, those jerky juveniles in the corny costumes? Yeah, I've heard of those guys." First of all, rude. So he goes back and Charles has him tested. He has him pulling these massive chains so hard that he breaks these chains like King Kong. And then he starts to make a break for it, launching away any X-Men member in his path. So now he's gone, but now he knows everybody's real identity because he was there for a bit and then he's like, yeah, you know what? I'm out of here. So Charles had to track him down and then erase his memory from his brain. I had to start with Blob because he was so close to being a member. So much potential, and then he ended up picking the wrong team 3 issues later. But we had him for a bit. And before we continue on with this list, if you guys haven't already, please go ahead and give us a thumbs up because it helps our channel out so much. You guys are the best. Thank you so much for watching. Now back to our list. Number 9, Vulcan. He named himself after the Roman god of fire, but Vulcan's real identity was that of Gabriel Summers. He was born after Cyclops and Havoc. Well, not really born, he was surgically removed from his mother's body and placed in an incubator accelerator, aged to be at his prime, and then sent back to Earth to work for Devan Shikari. He then escaped and was found by Moira McTaggart with no memories of who he is or where he came from. He was impressing Charles quite a bit, and all he wanted to do was learn his mutant abilities. Sounds like the dream student. So Charles needed help from him and other newcomers to find the remaining X-Men after most of them had been depowered from the Scarlet Witch. So Charles put him in this danger room purely made of Charles' thoughts as a training exercise to get them sharp in a short amount of time. So inside it feels like months of training, but in actuality it's only a few hours. Then Vulcan and his new team were sent to Krakoa to rescue the original X-Men. But Vulcan revealed to Scott that Xavier sacrificed his own brother to save him. And then Kid Vulcan's true origins are shown, and in the next issue of Deadly Genesis, he's unleashed. Number 8, Frenzy. Joanna Cargill made her first comic book debut in X-Factor issue 4 when she accidentally punched her father so hard that her hand went through his chest. Now her father was by no means a good person at all, but I mean doesn't mean he deserved to go out like that. Plus finding out you're a mutant at that time in that way must have been pretty traumatizing. She became known as Frenzy and she joined the Allegiance of Evil. After the Acolytes disbanded, Joanna became an ambassador for Genosha and stood by Magneto until she was captured by the US government in order to learn more about Magneto. But she didn't talk. She kept her mouth shut until Jean Grey entered and freed her, giving her the option to join the X-Men the easy way or the hard way. Jean used the hard way, and then Frenzy's entire attitude was changed, just like that. Her brain was different. Now her personality was campy, it was awkward, and not nearly as confident as before. But she did help the X-Men find Magneto's base. She was a team member, even if it was forced and awkward. After Magneto's defeat, her mind control was released and she rejoined the Acolytes and left the X-Mansion. Again, a little brief, but it still counts. Number 7, Caliban. An albino mutant and a former member of the Morlocks, Caliban made his first comic book appearance in Uncanny X-Men 148. He has the ability to track down any mutant, and he actually sacrifices himself in Logan, where he was played by the hilarious Stephen Merchant. Great film. If you haven't seen it, go check it out. It's on Disney Plus now, rated R. So good. He was originally an ally to the X-Men, so I'm gonna count him as a hero who switched over to the dark side. Because once he became a tracker for Apocalypse in X-Factor issue 24, titled The Fall of Mutants. So Apocalypse gave him extra strength and renamed him Hellhound, taking the place of the Horseman Death. Number 6, Gazer. Making his first debut in X-Men Volume 2, issue 169, Gazer met the X-Men when a Golgotha invasion was threatening Earth. He was alone on a NASA space station, and due to his mutant abilities, he was the only person that could withstand high levels of radiation. So when these creatures approached Earth, he told Emma Frost, and then the X-Men joined him in space on his observation platform. Again, he wasn't knighted with a sword and deemed an official X-Men or anything like that, no. But he's a mutant who works in space to keep our planet safe, and he calls Emma Frost. So call him what you want, but this man's a hero. He's a bored, lonely hero up in space. He's definitely an X-Men. I'll say he's an X-Men. But then after the events of M-Day, things changed, and so did his morals. He lost his abilities, so now he was experiencing horrible radiation sickness, so he decided to literally jump ship, wanting to go out there instead of passing away alone in here. Fair, I mean, sad, but also makes a lick of sense. It's kind of like George Clooney in Gravity, just floating out in space. But while he was drifting in space like a hero, Apocalypse came on by to save his day, thus becoming the Horseman War. Number 5, Sunfire. He made his first debut in X-Men issue 64. Shiro Yashida's mother passed away of radiation poisoning when he was still young, and Shiro was raised by his uncle Tomo to hate the West and return to Japan to their imperial days. So he trained for years and attacked America when the X-Men pulled up to put a stop to it. So Sunfire ended up taking out his uncle and returning to Japan, but then he was sent to destroy an American cargo ship, but then Namor turned him for good. Now he was Japan's protector. When most of the X-Men were captured by Krakoa, Sunfire was recruited by Charles to help. He was named as one of the mythical 12, representing the power of nature alongside Storm and Iceman. So far, so good. But then during a battle with Deathstrike later on, he was presumed dead after an altercation, and the X-Men couldn't find his body. But you know who did? Apocalypse. Yep. He was turning him into the Horseman Famine, and he kind of had control over it, kind of. See, he wanted to stay and see if he could help out Gazer, who I'd previously mentioned up there, but they were sadly both turned by the end of the day. At least he tried. Number 4, Forge. Forge is a mutant and a tribal shaman who made his debut in Uncanny X-Men 184. He's known for creating these amazing inventions, and before he worked for the X-Men, he was fighting in the Vietnam War, where he would use dark magic to save himself. He rejected the life of a shaman in order to serve. He was able to create advanced cybernetic prosthetics to replace his missing limbs during all these battles. And then after the events of M-Day, Forge searched the multiverse to try and find other mutants. Then there was an alternate world of mutants at war with a group of artificial mutants that were created by Forge. So he was bad. He's a bad guy in another world. Brilliant mind, but it can get him into a little bit of trouble in some of these stories, especially the Ultimate Universe, where he literally sided with Magneto. And during this, he actually created a power amplifier for Magneto to use in order to flip the Earth's magnetic poles and take out every living being on the planet. So thanks, Forge. Really cool. You couldn't have made like an iPhone 14. Cool, that's good too. Number 3, Storm. Aurora Monroe made her first debut in Giant Size X-Men issue 1, and she's one of the more popular members of the X-Men, being portrayed by Halle Berry and Alexandra Shipp. She was recruited by Charles and she joined the team to save other original members from Krakoa. She was appointed leader after several years of work, and in X-Men Apocalypse, we see her recruited as a horseman. But by the end of the movie, she betrays him and joins the X-Men because she's not a fan of how he treats her idol, Mystique. It's probably the only time we'll see Storm evil, at least in this live action run. But it was still pretty entertaining. It was nice to see a younger version of Storm, and then of course be influenced by Apocalypse. It was kind of cool. I could do with more bad Storm. I mean, you know, just for a little bit. Number 2, Lord Xavier. We can't forget this one, okay? He's also known as the Witch King, and you can see him in Volume 2, Issue 9 of Extreme X-Men. So the Witch King ruled over Genosha and sports a look that is very menacing, maybe Power Rangers. It's pretty badass, but also kind of Power Rangers. It's right in the middle. He has an army of orcs and beasts on top of his already spectacular abilities. And in this issue, we also see a few upgrades to the Professor, like concussive energy blast for starters. And in the opening of the story, we see him effortlessly take down invaders with machines, so it doesn't matter how you roll up to this fight, Lord Xavier, Witch King of Genosha, will take you down with his armies of orcs and beasts. Probably one of the cooler versions. Finally, number 1, Deadpool. Deadpool kills the Marvel Universe. It's such a blast to read, and I had to include it in here because it's so good. It's so Deadpool. The issue was released in August 2012, and just the front cover, you know what you're getting into. So what's the story here? What are we getting into? What happened to Wade? Well, his mouth wasn't sewn shut, and he didn't have swords for hands. Nothing like that this time, no. The X-Men put Wade into the Ravencroft Asylum in attempts to heal his insanity. The doctor, Psycho Man, was brainwashing Wade's in hopes to shut down all of his inner voices, which worked, but now all these voices were replaced with voices that were encouraging him to kill everybody in the Marvel Universe. So it went from bad to worse, and of course, Wade's the one to do it. Right off the bat, the series draws you in. I mean, it opens with the Fantastic Four facing off with Wade. Reed gets left all rubbery and left for dead and lifeless. It's really gruesome, but also really fun. Not for the faint of heart, but definitely fun, and obviously super gory.